The rocket exploded, and that was the goal. Not a failure, not a mistake. The engines ignited, the ground shook, the system came alive. Everything looked controlled, everything looked precise, everything looked right. For a few seconds, it worked. The structure held, the trajectory stayed clean, the system performed exactly as expected, and then it broke. Fire spread across the body, the structure collapsed, the entire system came apart in the sky. From the outside, it looked like failure. Something went wrong, something didn't hold, something broke too early. But inside SpaceX, this was expected. No one panicked, no one reacted emotionally, because this was the test, not to prove it works, but to expose the exact moment success ends. They weren't trying to make it work, they were trying to see where it wouldn't, because a system that never fails is a system that has never been pushed far enough, and a system that hasn't been pushed is a system you don't understand. Every explosion answers something, where the pressure builds too fast, where the material gives in, where the design reaches its limit, and that moment matters more than everything that worked before it, because success hides flaws, failure reveals them instantly. That's why they don't avoid failure, they design for it. They don't trust what works, they trust what has failed and been rebuilt stronger. Because a system that works in perfect conditions proves nothing, it only shows what happens when nothing goes wrong. But reality doesn't work like that. Reality adds pressure, reality changes variables, reality forces weak points to appear. And this is where most people would stop, because everything still looks like it works. But that's exactly the problem. They don't wait for reality to break it. They break it first, on purpose. They push harder than necessary. They test beyond limits. They create conditions where failure is likely, because that's where the truth is, not in comfort, in pressure. They don't ask, does this work? They ask, where does it break? They want to see it fail early, because early failure is controlled. Late failure is expensive. Every time it breaks, they learn something real, something they can fix, something they can remove. And each time they rebuild, the system gets stronger, not because it worked before, but because it failed before. This is you, but you don't think like that. You've been here before. You trusted someone too quickly. There was a moment that didn't feel right. You noticed it. You knew something was off. You just didn't want it to be true. So you moved on. You told yourself it was fine. And later, everything made sense. Everything that felt small before suddenly became obvious. And you looked back and didn't understand why you didn't see it. But you did. You just didn't treat it like it mattered. You don't test your decisions, you trust them, and that's the mistake. You only see what works, you don't see what breaks. Every decision has a weak point, something that won't hold under pressure, something that collapses when conditions change, but you never force it to appear, so it stays hidden until it's too late. The uncomfortable truth. You don't miss the mistake, you avoid it, because seeing it changes everything. The moment you take that doubt seriously, you have to slow down. You have to question yourself. You have to reconsider your decision, and that creates discomfort. Your brain doesn't want that. It wants clarity, it wants speed, it wants certainty, so it filters what you see. It keeps what feels right and softens what doesn't. You still notice the signal, but it doesn't feel important. It feels small, it feels ignorable, and that's why you move forward. That's the moment the mistake is created. Not later, not when things fall apart, but right there, when something didn't fully make sense and you chose not to stop. You didn't miss it, you protected yourself from it, because seeing it clearly would have forced a different choice, and your brain prefers comfort over correction. Here's the truth. You're not wrong because you're not smart. You're wrong because you don't test what feels right. Because what feels right is exactly what you stop questioning. And that's why the same mistakes keep repeating. Think differently. If you want different results, you need a different approach. Not more thinking, better testing. Before any decision, pause, just for a moment. Then ask one question. What would make this fail instantly? Not later, instantly. What is the weak point? What is the one thing that cannot survive pressure? If you find it, you can fix it. If you ignore it, it will find you later. That's the shift, not finding what works, but removing what breaks. Most people don't fail because they're wrong. They fail because they never test what feels right. The rocket didn't explode because something went wrong. It exploded so they could see what would. And until you do the same, you'll keep moving forward with confidence while missing the one thing that actually decides the outcome. And that's the part that keeps fooling you. And next time, it will feel right again.